These bear videos on social media, they're not always from Russia, but they're usually from Russia. As of course, this is a representation of the people we're dealing with right now when it comes to a peace deal that a lot of people believe is in the works right now. But will it actually manifest? As of course, there's a lot of signs of goodwill, but does that translate into actual formidable action? As right now, Donald Trump had some very interesting things to say about the possibilities of U.S. troops on the ground in Ukraine here, as the Russians answered back in their own kind of typical, usual Russian way, as the bombardments and drone attacks continue on Kiev here, as we got more interesting details about an alleged hot mic Trump moment that the media is building up on. That, to me, is just a little bit ridiculous, to say the least here. And people are trying to make a controversy out of it, just like they're trying to make a controversy out of everything. We got warmongers like John Bolton that are probably waking up in cold sweats right now, as I think we are closer towards a deal more than ever. All of this as we are also getting reports of Donald Trump literally calling Vladimir Putin and putting him on speakerphone with the European leadership and Volodymyr Zelensky himself. Now, what happened during these conversations? Well, this alleged hot mic caught some of the details here, as we are going to be doing a full-on geopolitical deep dive into what in the world is going on right now, as we still now await a potential third meeting between Putin and Zelensky himself. Would that meeting actually happen? Well, so far, we're getting some signals that it doesn't look too well. If you appreciate our type of coverage on this that I've been talking about for over 20 plus years, subscribe, click the notification button, as of course there's a lot to get into. This is a very complicated situation. I would say our coverage of this has been pretty much on top of all of it. So if you appreciate that, subscribe, click the notification button, as of course we are now finding out today that the Russians, specifically Vladimir Putin, just gifted an Alaskan man a new motorcycle after his recent summit in Anchorage, after we found out that because of the sanctions, he wasn't able to get parts for his Soviet-era bike, as Putin said, you know what, I'll personally intervene here, and we're going to do a sign of goodwill here. We had a lot of good signs of goodwill here. We had Zelensky put it on something that looked like a suit. He had, a nice shirt on. He didn't have he had sort of a suit jacket on, and we had this phone call, which I think is important because, you know, when you kind of look back at it, when countries are at war with each other, the perfect way to de-escalate the situation is to have the leaders actually speak to each other. And now Trump kind of brokering this type of deal and situation where he's like, yeah, hold on here, European leaders. Let's bring in Putin here on this phone call, as they just virtually met. They had a Zoom meeting where Putin was talking to Zelensky. This right here is, I think, major. I think it's big here. Now, Trump's comments afterwards are interesting, and people are saying, well, some of this just doesn't make sense here.
But you got the Article 5 protections, though, for Ukraine. So they're not going to be a part of NATO, but you still got them the same protections.
So they're not going to be a part of NATO, but we've got the European nations, and they'll front-load it, and they'll have some of them, France and Germany, a couple of them, UK. They want to have, boots on the ground. Not in. I don't think it's going to be a problem, to be honest with you. I think Putin is tired of it. I think they're all tired of it. But you never know. We're going to find out about President Putin in the next couple of weeks. That I can tell you, and we're going to see where it all goes.
Now, is it a problem? Yeah, it kind of is a problem. As of course, this is kind of what brought us to war. And if you have to remember, it was Kamala Harris going over to Ukraine, and as vice president of the United States under the Biden administration, which this conflict and this war started, and says, yeah, no, Ukraine's on the pathway towards NATO membership. And then, of course, led the invasion here, as I think Putin, who has been predominantly fighting against NATO troops on his border, will not be too happy about European military on his border. Now, will there be some kind of like deal here where, because what was previously discussed was the United States specifically being a buffer zone force in the region that could have been there in order to protect Ukraine and to give Ukraine security protections from now on. A lot of people found that to be a kind of bad deal for America, as of course that situation would be ripe for false flags here. Either way you cut it, this situation is very complicated. It's very difficult to deal with. And there's a lot of different kind of things that could restart and re-engage this conflict that I think people need to be aware of. As right now we're getting the latest news that allegedly the Russians have responded to Washington talks with Zelensky with a mass drone and missile strikes on Ukraine. As we're getting the news that Russia has launched, quote, one of August's largest aerial attacks on Ukraine that allegedly took the life of 15 people, injuring 76 across multiple regions, as UN reports show escalating civilian casualties in Ukraine due to intensified Russian assaults, with July's toll being the highest since May of 2022 here. ABC News also reports Russia launches largest attack. Now, before talking about this quote, largest attack and what it means and what it kind of represents here, we wanted to remind you to sign up to lookunfiltered.com. If you haven't signed up yet, what are you doing? What are you waiting? It's quick, it's easy, it's simple. Click the link down in the description below. Once you do that, you get here, you sign up for whatever you can afford. If you can't afford anything and you're super broke, I understand. If you have 20 cents a day, you get 3 master classes, 13 plus of years of videos centered around being the best, most amazing version of yourself. And we're doing a range day that you need to RSVP for right now if you want to come. We only have 10 spots that are available. And we are doing a special range day here in South Florida, September 20th. The perfect time to visit Florida if you haven't been. Florida is a beautiful state, beautiful people, beautiful nature, and we are going to be doing a really fun range day, rain or shine, September 20th, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Be a part of that by signing up to lookunfiltered.com, and then we go take this class together, and we pay for the instructors and the class, and it's just a really fun, amazing time. We did this 2 times already. This is going to be our 3rd type of event that we're going to be doing this with you. So sign up whilst the slots remain for you guys to join here. Now, Russia's recent attacks here do highlight the kind of escalatory nature of this conflict that are getting pretty severe here. Now, the Russians allegedly launched 280 drones and missiles overnight, right after this big meeting with all the European leaders. As the European leaders are like, yeah, allow us to have our military on the front lines, right on Russia's doorstep, which the Russians probably will be seeing as type of potentially, and this is from the Russian perspective here, which we need to entertain here, because a lot of people are just seeing the American perspective and getting one side of the story here. But from the Russian perspective, they don't want NATO on their border, right? They see that as a threat, and they believe that NATO is going to get closer and closer and then absolutely take over Russia, invade them, and attack them and conquer them. The Europeans also believe similar things, that Russia is going to be expanding their border, and then they're just going to keep expanding it. And if they get rewarded with this Ukrainian territory, they're going to want more and more territory. They're getting emboldened here. History usually tells a tale, usually, not always, of Napoleon, of the funny mustache guy, all going and allegedly aggressing against the Ruskies, and then they kind of deal with a severe type of weather incident. They don't have the supplies, they don't have hardened troops, they don't have the numbers, they don't have the raw minerals and infrastructure and troops, and then they kind of get their butts kicked. A lot of people are saying we're kind of repeating that type of history here, as now people are arguing, well, with Putin now launching more drone strikes than ever, with him starting his military-industrial complex, with him now vast producing these type of drones faster, quicker than ever, with his economy now being war-centered more than ever, and him making progress and breakthroughs, there's no reason for him to even work out a peace deal here. As Trump just came out today and says Putin may not even want to make a deal with Ukraine here, as Trump now is gauging Putin's actions over the next 2 weeks here. As Trump says, Putin faces a very, quote, rough situation if there's no deal on Ukraine. The same goes for Ukraine. Zelensky hailed the summit with Trump as a, quote, step forward to peace. That was good. Luckily, there were no blowups. There was no arguments. There was no public fights. There was no walking out. There was no embarrassment. And there wasn't a type of blow up like there was before. Now, Russia launching these, military strikes does speak volumes to the negotiations probably going off in a way where the Russians aren't too happy with it, and now they're doing a kind of show of force here. Now, there's a lot of still uncertainty and questions about U.S. security guarantees for Ukraine. Allegedly, the Russians are saying, look, I don't want NATO. I don't want the European soldiers on the border. But American soldiers, okay, that's a different situation. Now, so far, we haven't gotten confirmations about when Putin and Zelensky meeting. If Putin and Zelensky don't meet, I don't see the prospects of a deal being worked out here. I think once the deal's worked out, Trump's going to have this photo op, right? And Trump really wants this photo op. Trump really wants to win the Nobel Peace Prize. He's going about it in a very kind of weird way, in my opinion. There would be a different way to kind of go about it, but especially with the Middle East stuff. But Trump wants his photo op. He wants to take Putin. He wants to take Zelensky. He wants to hold their hands. He wants to lift it up. I did this. I brought them together, and he wants to bring them together, and they're going to shake hands. Deals met. Deals signed. Trump did it. Give him a Nobel Peace Prize. Listen, if he does this, even Hillary Clinton was like, yeah, okay, that's deserving, even though she came out with her kind of like red lines, which were a little bit insane. Regardless, Trump does this. Yeah, huge, major victory that deserves to be complimented and respected here, as of course Trump is working hard trying to achieve this deal. There's no denying that. There's no denying that he's taking a lot of political capital, taking a lot of his time trying to do this deal. And this is a good sign. Zelensky said positive things. Putin said positive things. As right now we're hearing that Switzerland is willing to host the Russian-Ukraine peace talks. Now, Putin probably won't do this because he'll feel for his life if he goes to Europe. And Switzerland wasn't even unbiased here during this conflict. They took the side of the Ukrainians. Now, Donald Trump, because there was questions about U.S. troops being on the ground here, which was left as a possibility here, just came out and said no U.S. troops, but there could be some sort of air support. Air support, what does that mean? Again, quick-moving situation here, as President Trump offered assurances that U.S. troops, quote, would not be sent to Ukraine to defend against Russia after this peace deal was made here. Now, there was always talk about a buffer zone. There was always talks about independent third parties, maybe even China. China sending troops to Ukraine. China has a lot of trade deals with Ukraine too, by the way. Sending in China. There's Chinese mercenaries also fighting on the side of the Russians now, by the way. Sending in China to set up this buffer zone to make sure that during this peace deal, the peace is held by these kind of intermediary troops that don't have any kind of allegiance to everything, but are there to make sure that firing and the battles don't continue afterwards. Will it be China? China probably would love to be involved in this, but so far they have not been involved in this. Now, will U.S. troops be there? As soon as I heard that, it's like, false flag, false flag, false flag. They're going to do a false flag. U.S. troops are going to be there. Boom, we're going to be in war. Now there's Trump hinting at, it might be European troops. I don't think it's going to be European troops. I think the Russians are going to see that as a hard line, and it could be one reason why they're launching such an extensive military campaign in response to this. Now, what was exactly talked about during this particular meeting here? One of this hot mic moments kind of represents this. But now, listen. There's still questions. Like, what do you mean no troops on the ground, but air support? What does that mean? Why would the United States be providing Ukraine air support as part of a deal to end this potential conflict here? That's just weird, as Ukraine wants U.S. military support, which might include their air force in order to, quote, keep the peace here. Now, the Europeans are like, yeah, we'll put our troops on the ground. We're ready. We're willing. I don't think that's going to be a kind of impartial force here. I think it's going to be very clear that the Russians are going to see that as kind of an escalatory type of situation that's unfolding here. Now, the White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed U.S. air support was an option and a possibility, but Trump didn't provide any further details. So that's one of the kind of negotiations here. Clearly, there's going to be a lot of economic deals that are going to be made here. Now, the economic deals are going to be very important, as even Marco Rubio described how the Russians are literally paying cash for their fuel during this recent summit meeting in Alaska.
You know, when the Russians landed in Alaska, they were there to refuel. They had to offer to pay in cash to refuel their airplanes because they can't use our banking system.
Now, being open to the American banking system, being able to get some of their funds and money back, being able to open up Russia to the world economy again, that would be pretty big. And I think Trump is backing on a lot of these economic deals and potential raw earth mineral deals that are being negotiated right now. Putin offered that up when Zelensky was being a little stingy with his rare earth minerals as a component here, as that probably what was being discussed here. Now, there is a map showing Ukrainian territories that were claimed by Russia that was at this talk, highlighting how, look, this is what the Russians have. The Russians want all of these 4 regions. 5 regions, if you type in Crimea. You got Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, and this is a big portion. There's a lot of rare earth minerals there. There's a lot of mines. There's a lot of natural resources there. And Kiev doesn't want to give up these territories, but Kiev has hinted at them being open to potentially giving up some of these territories. So we saw this map here laid out, specifically talking about, hey, look, they got 72, 76% of this region. They got more of this region here. They got troops in this specific region here. And I bet they're probably talking about, we'll swap up some of the troops here. We'll give you this region. You give us this region. And now they're personally negotiating everything. Now, so far, especially in the battle against Bakhmut, we are seeing some breakthroughs. Nothing significant. The war is still a major stalemate here. And now we have this hot mic moment. Bolton reacts to hot mic moment. Putin, that's the way to Trump's heart. Trump's hot mic remarks on Putin surfaces during his talk. Trump, hot mic catches Trump saying Putin wants to make a deal with me during the meeting with European leaders. And again, this hot mic moment really is nothing really major here, but here it is.
Yeah, I think
to set up a trilat, you know. So
and where do you want to
I think he wants to make it. I think he wants to make a deal for me. You understand? As crazy as it sounds. Just sit down. Sit down, everybody.
Okay.
Yeah. I think he wants to make a deal with me. Yeah, I think everyone wants a deal. I think that's a lot better than perpetual war and the ending of Slavic young men that are losing their lives here in record numbers, and us being brought on the brink of a full-on major potential conflict that is escalating, unfolding, and growing in ways that are absolutely petrifying. Now listen, this conflict is pretty wild. It's pretty crazy. Blessed are the peacemakers. And listen, as Rubio said here, and as I've been saying for a very long time, the best possible outcome, the best possible deal here would be that both of the sides here come out leaving thinking that they got something and that they lost something. That's the best way. Now, exactly what that is, how is all of that going to be looking here? That's going to be something that could be debated and argued forever. If Trump really is able to slice through all of that, right? If he's able to subdue the escalations and to make sure that there's going to be a lasting peace here, that would be something that I think would be absolutely incredible. Deserving of a Nobel Peace Prize. As, listen, can't we all just live in peace and harmony? Can't we all just understand how short and precious life is? Can't we respect life, grow, prosper, make deals, share, and have respect for the beauty that is our human life and existence? As there are a lot of sinister, evil parties, intelligence agencies, military industrial complex that wants to see the fighting just continue on. And even even if there's this trial arming, even if there's a deal, we're still not out of the fray, as there's a big possibility for false flag attacks, which I think we need to be on the lookout for. As listen, the Ukrainians are probably going to be answering back after these major escalatory actions here. So the situation, I think it's only going to get crazier. If you agree, share this video, especially if you're praying for peace, just like I am. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys subscribing, especially to lookunfiltered.com. I can't thank you guys enough for doing that. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys doing that. And this is why I try to end every single broadcast now by saying, thank you, beautiful and amazing human beings, for subscribing. Stay tuned for more, all here exclusively on youtube.com/wearechange.